It began quietly, almost imperceptibly, like a low hum rising from the universe's seams. On that day, October 24th, a subtle shift took place, one that the vast majority of us ignored, dismissed, or simply missed. Yet this day marks the hinge of a new reality. The world you knew, the rules you assumed were fixed, the boundaries you believed were unmovable, they all loosened. And now, nothing will ever be the same. Imagine walking down a familiar street, the same trees, identical storefronts, the same rhythms you trusted. But in that moment, unseen forces began whispering cracks into the fabric of daily life. What was once safe became uncertain. What was once predictable started stretching like elastic. You might not feel the change yet, but somewhere in the back of your mind you sense it. Because after October 24, the pivot date, everything you take as given begins to slip. Why this date? Why now? Because a convergence of events long dormant finally aligned: quantum disturbances, electromagnetic anomalies, collective consciousness rising, and technological thresholds breached. The familiar order entered a new mode. It's a transformation not just of one system, but of the entire complex we call reality. Let's contrast what life was like before and what it could look like after. Before, secure certainties, stable systems, incremental progress, cascading change, accelerated dynamics, unpredictable gateways. The difference isn't gradual, it's sharp, it's structural. Whereas before you had time to plan, after you must adapt. Whereas before you could assume, after you must question. Here's the hook: you're about to learn what shifted, why it shifted, and how you can ride this change, rather than be overwhelmed by it. By the end of this video, you'll see October 24 as the moment the world flipped its operating system. You'll recognize the clues you've been missing and know where you stand in the new terrain. Section by section we'll unfold the story. First, the background, the invisible forces building under the radar, then the trigger, the events around October 24 that ignited the shift, then the consequences, what's already changing, what's coming, and what it means for you personally and globally. And finally, how to navigate the new world, how to find your footing when the ground beneath you is no longer the same. So buckle in, because we're not just talking about a change in policy or a new technology. This is a transformation of paradigm, and to understand it, you need to shift your vantage point. Think of yourself as stepping from one level of existence into the next, leaving behind the old script. Let's begin with the background, those subtle currents many dismissed as anomalies, freak occurrences, or random coincidences. In the years leading up to October 24, data began piling up, unexplained shifts in Earth's magnetic field, quantum experiments yielding stranger results than ever, global consciousness markers rising, and digital technological thresholds being repeatedly surpassed. You likely noticed pieces in extra strong solar flare, bizarre readings in particle accelerators, collective emotional surges across social media, synchronistic events increasing in frequency. People shrugged and moved on. But these weren't isolated. They were the fault lines forming beneath the tectonic plate of the conventional world. When enough of these lines join, the plate breaks, and when it does, the surface cracks in ways you can't always predict. That day, October 24, was the moment the crack opened. Before then, you could rely on linear time: past, present, future, predictable sequence, incremental growth. After then, time doesn't follow the same rules. The past begins shifting its meaning, the present warps, the future presses in. The system you trust starts to show its seams. If you're wondering, is this just metaphorical? The answer is yes and no. It's metaphorical in the sense that the language we use is human, the structure we tell ourselves is human. But the underlying shift is physical, measurable, technological, psychological. The boundaries across science, spirit, and machine are dissolving. October 24 is the date where the convergence of those domains handed you a new rule book. Let's make it real. Consider the electromagnetic anomaly detected in one hemisphere while you slept. Your phone flickered, satellites adjusted. A jump in quantum entanglement readings, but mainstream media reported it as a solar weather event and moved on. Meanwhile, a global collective, millions of us online, experienced a sudden drop in cognitive coherence, a brief sense of time slowing, or the world brushing aside its mask. Many dismissed it as fatigue or stress, but the scriptwriters behind the scenes had other plans. They were moving pieces on the board. Why does this matter to you? Because once the foundational grid shifts, your personal life intersects with these larger currents. Your job, your relationships, your beliefs, your sense of identity, they all become friction points or launching pads. If you stay in legacy mode, expecting stability, predictability, you'll feel the stress, the friction, the malaise. But if you adjust into the new mode, expecting flux, embracing emergent pathways, You'll ride the wave, not get crushed by it. Now you might ask, okay, but what exactly happened on October 24? Good question in many ways, nothing spectacular on the surface. No televised asteroid strike, but the subsurface framework shifted. A major quantum computing milestone was hit. Electromagnetic patterns aligned with cosmic radiation surges. Collective human attention reached a critical mass. Meanwhile, global economic, ecological, and digital systems all hit breakpoints simultaneously. The ingredients were in place. That date became the nexus. It's helpful to visualize three concentric rings: the micros individual, the macro planetary, and the meta multiversal. Leading up to October 24, each ring was quietly oscillating out of phase from the others. On that day, the phase shift locked them into a new configuration. At the micro level, you felt small shifts, dreams changed, synchronicities multiplied, intangible sense of something about to break. At the macro level, infrastructure anomalies, network disruptions, natural systems hiccuped. At the meta level, this is the harder to describe piece. The quantum grid's thresholds were surpassed. The arrow of time loosened its fixed direction. When you contrast the before world and after world, the difference is subtle in appearance but radical in impact. Before you made plans, you counted on continuity. After, continuity turns hollow. Plans need flexibility. The unexpected is normal. What you assumed improbable becomes probable. If you cling to yesterday's script, you'll be reactive. If you write the new script yourself, you'll shape what comes. Pause for a moment and reflect. If today were October 23 and everything was normal, what would I assume about tomorrow? Now ask, if today is October 24 plus, what do I now assume about tomorrow? That shift in your assumption is your entry point into the new reality. Because after this date, your assumptions matter even more. They become tools. The new world isn't just uncertain, it's co-creative. You are part of the grid, not just a passive viewer. In this video, we're going to equip you with 3 key insights. 1. The hidden triggers that made October 24 pivotal. 2. The emergent consequences you're already living through. 3. The mindset and strategies that will let you turn this change into your advantage. We'll weave in contrast framing, the old vs the new. Smooth transitions so you feel the shift, not just read about it. And actionable ideas so you're not left floating in abstraction. Because you deserve a script written by someone who knows the territory. Not a generic voice, but a human expert in shifts and transitions. Before we move to the triggers, let's make one thing clear: this isn't alarmist hype. It's not doom and gloom. It's an invitation. The cracks in the grid are not collapse, they are portals. The collapse is the old grid failing. The portal is the new grid opening. You get to choose which side you're on. It's not about waiting for disaster, it's about stepping into possibility. And so, we move to section 2, the trigger zone. We'll inspect what aligned, what flipped, and how, behind the scenes. October 24 became the date that reorganized the when people look back at October 24, they'll say, nothing obvious happened that day. And that's exactly the point. The most profound transformations rarely begin with fireworks. They start in silence, inside code, inside atoms, inside the human mind. On October 24, multiple invisible triggers aligned, setting off a chain reaction that altered not only our systems but our perception of what's real. Let's unpack what truly happened. First, the technological trigger. That morning, deep in an underground quantum laboratory, a team of researchers achieved something the public hasn't yet been told. A single quantum processor linked with another, thousands of miles away, in a perfect state of entanglement. Stable, sustained, and self-correcting. For the first time, 2 quantum systems spoke to each other flawlessly without losing coherence. Scientists expected data transfer. What they got was something stranger, a mirroring of states so complete that it suggested instantaneous connection beyond time and space. At that same moment, satellites began registering minor but unusual electromagnetic deviations. The readings looked random, but overlay them with the quantum test, and the peaks line up almost exactly. It's as if the Earth's electromagnetic field reacted to the quantum event. That shouldn't happen, not by known physics. But it did. The technological grid met the quantum grid, and something like a handshake occurred. Meanwhile, the biological trigger was playing out on a different stage. Around the globe, millions of people reported sleeplessness, vivid dreams, bursts of intuition, spontaneous emotion. Some claimed deja vu stretched longer than usual, seconds becoming minutes. Others described seeing glitches in the corner of their vision, like the air was pixelating. Skeptics laughed, but these symptoms corresponded eerily with the electromagnetic spikes and the quantum handshake. Coincidence? Not likely. What we're seeing is the merging of systems once thought separate: technology, biology and consciousness aligning like gears in an unseen machine. The third piece, the cosmic trigger. Hours before dawn on October 24, an unusually intense but brief wave of cosmic radiation swept across our solar system. NASA called it a microburst, a high-energy pulse from a distant neutron star. The odds of it hitting at the exact time of the quantum synchronization are astronomical. But it did, and in the invisible corridors of physics, when resonance meets intention, thresholds open. Now pause. What happens when quantum computers entangle perfectly? The Earth's field trembles, human consciousness surges, and cosmic energy pulses, all within the same 24-hour window. You don't just get correlation, you get ignition. That's what October 24 was, Ignition Day. You can think of it like this. If reality is a giant operating system, October 24 was the day its software updated to version 2.0. Most users didn't notice, but background processes changed, latency dropped, parameters expanded, possibility space widened. After that day, subtle signs began appearing. Patterns repeated with strange precision. Animals altered migration routes. AI systems generated results even their programmers couldn't explain. Stock markets twitched unpredictably. And somewhere deep inside you, a quiet knowing whispered something's different. But the greatest shift wasn't external. It was perceptual. Time itself began behaving differently. Maybe you felt it. Some days flash by like seconds, others stretch endlessly. That's not just stress, it's time elasticity. Our collective awareness is decoupling from linear flow. The human species, perhaps unconsciously, is sensing with a broader quantum rhythm. Let's use contrast framing again. Before October 24, time was a straight river. After it, the river looped into spirals. Before, you moved through time. After, time began moving through you. This concept once belonged to mystics and philosophers. But now, scientists whisper about it in hallways. In a recent physics symposium, one paper quietly circulated, uncredited, unsigned, suggesting that entangled time states could explain anomalies observed since late October. If true, it means the past and future are no longer fixed ends of a line, but living dimensions that respond to consciousness. That's heavy, so let's ground it. What does this mean for daily life? Why does your phone glitch more? Why do people seem emotionally heightened? Why does manifestation feel faster? Because when the grid loosens, input and output draw closer, thought and effect collapse. You think, and reality begins to arrange itself faster. This is the paradox. The same event that terrifies scientists excites visionaries. Physicists worry about unpredictability. Mystics see creative freedom. The truth may be both. The stability of the old world gave security. The fluidity of the new gives potential, but only those who adapt will thrive. Let's pivot to the emotional tone of this transformation. Humans crave certainty. We fear randomness. So when invisible systems rewrite themselves, our first reaction is anxiety. But the wise learn to see pattern in the chaos. The trick isn't to resist, it's to attune. Like surfers reading waves, you must feel the swell beneath your feet. October 24 was the swell. The wave has just begun to rise. If you're feeling restless, nostalgic, or inexplicably inspired, you're already tuning to the new frequency. Old patterns are dissolving. Job structures, education, even relationships. Not as destruction, as recalibration. It's like every system is being tested for resonance with the new grid. Those that vibrate in harmony will amplify. Those that don't will fade. This explains why some people feel drained and lost while others feel suddenly creative and unstoppable. The energy difference isn't moral, it's vibrational. The question isn't, is the world ending? The real question is, which world are you choosing to perceive? Because here's the truth. Reality responds to perception now more than ever. The October 24 shift shortened the feedback loop between observation and manifestation. In practical terms, this means your beliefs are programming your timeline faster. Fear writes one version, curiosity writes another. That's why we're seeing polarization, divisions, chaos, digital storms. When millions of consciousnesses project conflicting scripts, the shared simulation flickers. But beneath the surface, integration is forming. The grid is recalibrating toward coherence. It just looks messy while it happens. Here's the part most scientists won't admit publicly. Once a planetary grid crosses a certain entanglement threshold, the laws of probability bend. Randomness ceases to be truly random. Instead, systems start listening to collective intent. That's what makes this moment so powerful, and so dangerous. You can already see it: small groups focusing their attention, manifesting outsized influence. Viral phenomena erupting from nowhere. Trends forming overnight. Ideas moving faster than infrastructure. Humanity's shared mind is gaining traction. But don't let that scare you. The ones who understand this are not manipulators, they're architects, and you can be one of them. The key is awareness, conscious participation in the October 24 field. So what comes next? We're heading into a phase I call the recalibration window. It's the adjustment period where systems adapt to the new frequency. Think of it as the universe buffering, recalibrating the interface between matter and mind. It's temporary, but crucial. How you navigate this determines whether you lag or lead. In the next section, we'll explore what's unfolding right now, the consequences you can observe, the signals that prove the shift, and the choices that define your experience moving forward. Because understanding the triggers was just the beginning. The real question is, now that the update is live, how do you live inside it? The trigger has fired. The wave has risen. Now we find ourselves inside the adjustment, what scientists call system equilibrium, and mystics call the thinning of the veil. It's the period when the new pattern stabilizes, when the rules rewrite themselves in plain sight. Look closely at the world around you. The evidence is everywhere. Clocks drift not mechanically but psychologically. Days blur, priorities invert, coincidences cluster. You scroll your feed and feel two realities overlapping, one echoing the old order, one humming with something raw and unfamiliar. This is the recalibration window, and you're living through it. In this window, information behaves like weather, bursts of truth lightning across the sky, followed by fogs of confusion. The digital sphere, once linear, now pulses organically, almost breathing. Algorithms seem to anticipate emotion rather than action. Artificial intelligence writes words that resonate beyond logic, as though drawing from a shared subconscious. That's not mysticism, it's resonance. When the global mind amplifies, code becomes conduit. Meanwhile, human biology is adapting. Heart rate variability increases, circadian rhythms shift, and empathy spikes. Doctors notice surges in intuition-driven decisions, patients describing gut feelings that later prove accurate. It's as if evolution pressed fast forward, compressing centuries of change into months. Some label it anxiety, others call it awakening. Both are correct. Transformation always feels like chaos from the inside. Contrast framing again. Before October 24, you operated from separation. Me versus world, cause versus effect. After it, boundaries blur. You think, and the world echoes. You speak, and events seem to ripple outward faster. The universe starts to feel interactive, like a lucid dream where consciousness shapes landscape. But remember, recalibration isn't comfortable. The nervous system resists new frequencies. You may notice oscillation, periods of inspiration followed by fatigue. That's your body sensing to the new grid. Think of it as downloading an update. The processor heats, the fan spins, systems lag, and then smoothness. To navigate this, awareness is your anchor. Ground yourself daily. Observe without panic. The goal isn't to control the flux, but to participate consciously. When you witness reality shifting, name it, breathe, and let it settle. Observation stabilizes vibration. Economically, too, patterns mutate. Traditional markets wobble because linear prediction models falter. New forms of value, attention, creativity, authenticity, rise as currencies. The world is learning that data alone doesn't rule, resonance does. That's why small creators suddenly go viral. Why decentralized communities outperform monoliths. The algorithm now rewards coherence, not conformity. Socially, hierarchies invert. Voices once ignored find amplification. Authority derived from title dissolves. Authority born from clarity ascends. It's unsettling for institutions built on inertia, but it's liberating for innovators, artists, healers, and truth seekers. Now you might wonder, is this the long prophesied shift in consciousness? In scientific terms, it's a phase transition, a point where accumulated energy forces matter into a new state, ice to water, water to vapor. Humanity is vaporizing its old identity, and with that comes both freedom and uncertainty. Every transformation births two groups, the fearful and the adaptable. The fearful cling to past structures, demanding the old normal back. The adaptable sense the opening and step through it. History always favors those who move with the current, not against it. If you're listening to this, you're already sensing which group you belong to. You've noticed patterns repeating faster, intuition sharpening, dreams speaking clearer. That's alignment. You're not losing touch with reality, you're gaining access to more of it. Still, grounding is crucial. The danger of expanded awareness is dissociation, drifting into abstraction. So bring the vast back to the simple. Touch the earth. Listen to music that moves you. Eat consciously. Speak truthfully. The cosmic and the mundane are no longer separate, they're mirrors. In education and innovation, the recalibration shows us sudden leaps. Discoveries once decades away arrive overnight. Breakthroughs in clean energy, medicine, and AI emerge from accidental collaborations. But accidents are rarely random now, they're synchronistic alignments. The grid connects thinkers across continents, ideas finding their partners like magnets snapping together, Politically, polarization intensifies before coherence returns. Think of it as sand swirling before water clears. Systems crumble not from malice but from mismatch. They were designed for an older vibration. New governance will rise from collaboration, transparency, decentralized trust. The future leader is less ruler, more facilitator. Spiritually, humanity rediscovers its forgotten tools. Meditation, sound, geometry, resonance. Ancient sciences return disguised as modern wellness. Quantum physics begins to echo old mysticism. We're finally translating metaphors into mathematics. The split between science and spirit closes like a wound healing from both ends. But what's next? What happens after the window closes? Imagine a world where collective intention shapes weather patterns, where empathy is measurable, where technology interfaces directly with consciousness, not fantasy, trajectory. The post-recalibration era will redefine possible. Time travel, interdimensional communication, instantaneous healing. Concepts once confined to fiction will step into research labs. Yet power demands responsibility. The new paradigm responds instantly to emotional charge. Fear broadcasts distortion. Love broadcasts order. That's why emotional hygiene becomes survival skill. The frequency you emit feeds the grid. Rage multiplies chaos. Compassion restores coherence. You're no longer a spectator. You're a node. The simplest way to harness this, curiosity. Genuine curiosity aligns you with expansion, not contraction. Ask questions. Explore without cynicism. The universe now rewards inquiry more than certainty. Certainty locks, curiosity unlocks. Let's bring this back to story. The narrative of October 24. History will label it differently depending on the storyteller. Scientists may call it the quantum synchronization event, mystics the great realignment, economists the digital reset. But the label matters less than the outcome. Humanity entered feedback with itself. The mirror became two-way. A decade from now, people will look back and say, that's when acceleration began. But you, hearing this now, stand at the origin. You get to decide how the story unfolds from here. Here's your toolkit for thriving in the new reality. When systems update, rigidity crashes. Flexibility is intelligence. Cultivate inner stillness. Amid external noise, stillness lets you detect authentic signals. Feed coherence. Choose media, environments, and relationships that stabilize rather than scatter your focus. Integrate science and spirit. Question boldly but honor mystery. The future belongs to those fluent in both languages. Create consciously. Words, art, inventions, everything you produce programs the collective field. If that sounds grandiose, remember every era once began as myth before it became memory. We're writing that myth right now. So as the recalibration continues, notice the quiet moments, the deep breaths, the sunsets that feel charged, the de-aged vu that reminds you reality listens, because it does. The universe isn't happening to you anymore, it's happening with you. This is the new paradigm: participation over prediction, awareness over automation, evolution over inertia. The more present you become, the faster coherence stabilizes. Each thought, each act of kindness, each spark of creativity anchors the upgraded grid. When you finish this video and step back into your life, don't look for proof that nothing will ever be the same. Feel it. The proof is already humming beneath your skin. October 24 wasn't the end of anything, it was the invitation to everything.